Well, hey everybody, Andy Kvernen here with another Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional. Have you ever sensed that you needed to have a conversation with somebody that you knew was going to be tough and you dreaded it? You didn't want to do it, and yet you knew it was the right thing to do. You knew that it was something that the Lord wanted you to do because it needed to happen for the good of the relationship, for the good of whatever you were doing or participating in. Maybe you're a leader and you had to have a conversation with somebody that was just plain hard and you knew you were going to pay a price for it. I can think of several of those types of conversations throughout my life and throughout my ministry, and I got to tell you, I never like them. And I'm encouraged by today's Bible reading because in Ezekiel 2, God is sending the prophet Ezekiel to speak to a people that don't want to hear his message. And in fact, that's a typical thing for the prophets that God sends. Over and over, God sends a prophet and the people reject the message of the prophet and suffer the consequences. But we've got to acknowledge for those prophets, it's not a desirable thing. We just finished reading Jeremiah not too long ago in the Bible reading plan, and Jeremiah had a tough calling. He was called the weeping prophet for a good reason. He was beaten, he was thrown into a cistern, he was put into stocks. It was a tough calling for Jeremiah. It will be for Ezekiel too. But I want you to listen in Ezekiel 2, chapter 2, what God says to Ezekiel. He says, "And you, son of man, be not afraid of them." And actually, I'll back up one verse. He says, "And whether they hear or refuse to hear, for they are a rebellious house, they will know that a prophet has been among them." I'm sending my word through you. They're going to know that they're not just rejecting you, they're rejecting me. This is what God is setting up here. And then he says, verse 6, "And you, son of man, be not afraid of them, nor be afraid of their words. Though briars and thorns are with you, and you sit on scorpions, be not afraid of their words, nor be dismayed at their looks, for they are a rebellious house. And you shall speak my words to them, whether they hear or refuse to hear, for they are a rebellious house. But you, son of man, hear what I say to you. Be not rebellious like that rebellious house. Open your mouth and eat what I give you." Now, there's a lot going on here. I find it fascinating in verse 6 that he says, "Though briars and thorns are with you and you sit on scorpions, I still want you to do this." In other words, God is acknowledging to Ezekiel, yeah, I know this is tough. I know briars and thorns and sitting on scorpions don't make for a lot of fun, but I still want you to speak my words. Don't be afraid of their words. Don't be afraid of their looks. If they reject you, know that it's not you they're rejecting, it's me. And friends, I don't know about you, but I don't want to be rejected. I don't want people to think poorly of me. I don't want people to be annoyed by me or even to be angry with me. And yet, more than that, I want to represent Jesus in whatever way he calls me. And as I think about that, I think about the cost of following Jesus, right? There is a cost there. In fact, Jesus talks about it in the Gospels. He says, if anyone would follow me, he must take up his cross and follow me. He must count the cost, it says in Scripture. And I was reading this morning a book by Dallas Willard. I've referenced this several times now. I'm reading this in kind of a slow fashion. I'm reading it with a slow read, just a little bit at a time, and I'm finding it rich. And I want you to hear what Willard talks about when it comes to the cost of discipleship. He says this. I think this will encourage you. He says, "The impression gained by most who hear about counting the cost of following Jesus is one of how terrible and painful that cost is. But to count the cost is to take into consideration both the losses and the gains of all possible courses of actions to see which is most beneficial." Is there a cost for Ezekiel to speak the words of the Lord to a people that don't want to hear? Sure. There's briars, there's thorns, they're sitting on scorpions. It's not so fun. There is a cost. Willard says, but to count the cost is to take in consideration not just the briars and thorns and thistles, or what he says, both not just to take. But to count the cost is to take into consideration both the losses, those things I just referenced, but also the gains of all possible courses of action to see which is most beneficial. See, following Jesus involves loss. It does involve leaving things behind, but it also involves gaining that which is amazing. He says, this done, Jesus knew the trials of apprenticeship, of discipleship, would appear to be the only reasonable path. As has been said, he is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. The cost of non-discipleship would then be seen for what it is, unbearable. That is why one would become able to sustain cheerfully the much smaller cost of discipleship to him. What's he saying here? He's saying, look, there is a cost to following Jesus, but there's also a cost to not following Jesus. Which is more costly? I don't know about you, friends, but when I consider what Jesus offers, when he offers forgiveness of sin, when he offers grace, when he offers honor instead of shame, when he offers beauty instead of brokenness, when he offers himself in the fullness of love on my behalf, I don't know. I don't think I'm losing much to follow him when I compare it with what I gain in him. Friends, the cost of discipleship can be significant. To take up our cross is no small thing. But friends, to take up our cross and follow Jesus and to be with Jesus as we're being sent by Jesus, friends, there is so much to gain in that endeavor. Let me challenge you. Maybe you're struggling with the cost of following Jesus. Maybe you're frustrated about having to have a hard conversation that you know is going to cost you a friendship or cost you your reputation. Maybe you're frustrated by the things that Jesus says you're not to do, or the things that Jesus calls you to do that you don't want to do. Maybe you're frustrated by all that. Let me reframe this for you. In fact, let the scriptures reframe it for you. What's the cost of not following him? Friends, in Jesus, there's life. Jesus said in John 10:10, I came that you may have life and have it abundantly. He's offering us the abundant life. Are we willing to accept it? Are we willing to walk with him? Sure, we might sit on scorpions, but friends, we have everything to gain in salvation, in joy, in relationship with Jesus. Let's walk with Jesus today. God bless you, friends. Have a great day. And Lord willing, we'll see you again soon on the Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional.